have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scoville. Welcome to the Lifeboat. Boy, that was a fun interview last night, wasn't it? The positive feedback that we've gotten off the Alan Valentine interview was just absolutely amazing. Hats off to Alan again for just coming here and being honest and hitting it out of the park. That was a beautiful interview. It was raw honesty and delivered in such a way that, you know, it was funny. Before we went live with it, there were people that said, you know, you give me hope. And I think they were talking primarily about the weight loss, because anybody that loses a third of their body weight, you know, gives people who are dieting a whole lot of hope. But I think that by the time it was all said and done, Alan gave people a lot of hope in a lot of different directions. And that's a really beautiful thing. I want to say hi to some of the people here. We got Noise Opera. Good to see you, bud. Miss V, Seventh Son, Hermit Hill, Kentucky. Stacy Michaels, Miss V, Trish Killian, Flamin' Jackson, Derek N. Good to see you, Derek. CW Terry. The crew is here. It's a good start. I like it. So, Greta, good to see you. I'm sure I'm missing people. Space Diesel, good to see you. And Stacy Michaels, if I said hi, we'll say hi again. Good to see you, Stacy. People tonight, you know, if you saw the video, we've been blessed in the last little bit that we've got quite a few new people that have been coming on board the lifeboat. Swiss Vapor, glad you're here, and that's a good thing. You know, that's the reason that we're back here on this platform, is because this is the place where we find individuals that are trying to get sober. And you know, when we were using the other format, whereas you know there were some benefits to it, the big drawback was that we just didn't have the ability to reach new people. And the goal of the lifeboat, and I think that we're really going to need to go over tonight the goal of the lifeboat, because I think that there's a good deal of misunderstanding. There really is. I've gotten so many emails, and very often I don't. Whereas I respond back to all of you, I don't always answer this question the way that I should, because I don't want it to come across as combative. I don't want it to be misunderstood, but I think that it comes up often enough now where, and since there's some new people here, that I think the clear goal and the clear mindset of what myself and Mark are doing here on the lifeboat, and all of you as well, but you know what our goal is in getting this thing rolling, right? Because it's very easy to get misunderstood when you run a sobriety channel. Especially when from time to time, hey, Leisure Beast, glad you're here. Brandon, good thing you showed up. It's easy from time to time to, to go off on a rant. You know, I get very, very upset about the number of people who are dying. You know, that really hits close to home. The number of people that I've known in my life who have lost the battle and are no longer with us, the numbers are staggering. And the number of people who are dying every day in this country, it's alarming. And it's something that we here at the Lifeboat take very, very personally. Pamela, I'm glad you're here. Good to see you. And all of a sudden, we kind of get, I don't know if the reputation is the word that I'm looking for, but we get viewed in a specific way. And one of the things that, that a lot of people think about when they think of the Lifeboat is we are the teetotaling, anti fun, anti partying, anti everything you want to call it, any of the cliches or anything else, which is really ironic after all of the years that we spent on the other side of the equation to now be the people that, kill game, Mark and Tommy are here, right? Buzzkill. It's almost ironic, but I would like to make it very, very clear. And if you saw the title of tonight's video, our fight is with addiction. I hope that really comes across quite clear. Our fight is with addiction. Our fight is with people whose lives are being damaged or lost to chemicals. That's our issue. So, the people in the world who seem to take umbrage with what we do, because pot's legal now, and you guys just hate on. I hate on pot. I don't remember doing the I hate on pot show. I get emails about it. I simply do not remember doing that show. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't remember doing the hating on too many drugs show. We try to be quite clinical in the way that we talk about substances, because number one, there are a lot of people on the boat who are still using, and that's not an issue for either of us. It's not an issue for me, and it's not an issue for Mark. It really isn't. Now, if it's an issue in your life, if the fact that you're using is an issue in your life, then it needs to be an issue with you. Make no mistake about it. But that's where we draw the line. We draw the line at what these chemicals and substances are doing to the people that we care about. And we will help those people fight that fight in every single way that we can. Make no mistake about it. That's the goal of the Lifeboat. When we say that, we would like to help people live their best life, you're not living your best life if you're addicted to drugs. If you think you are, then the drugs are doing their job. They're making you lie to yourself. And that's what they do best, right? But if you think you can live your best life while being addicted to a substance, I'm here to tell you that that's not even remotely possible, because it steals from you everything that makes life real. It steals from you the ability to have an emotional connection to the people around you, to the things around you, and most importantly, to yourself. Your emotional status is so damaged by drug addiction that you can't ride the ride that is this life with any kind of, there's no way to enjoy the highs and the lows. And I promise you that both of them have their place. And what drugs do is they level that out. You think that, you're always high. The truth of the matter is you're always drugged. The highs in this world come from things like the day you get married, the day that you have your first child, and then your second child, then your third child, or as many as you have. Those are the days that create the highs. Watching your son or daughter walk down the aisle, or watching your son or daughter graduate from high school, or restoring a car to its, previous glory and seeing something transform, or whatever your passion is. Those are what are supposed to be the highs in our lives. The things that you're passionate about that you can really get into. Those are the things that are supposed to create highs. Charlie Murphy, glad you're here. But what ends up happening is you stop doing the things that you love. And if you continue to do them, you certainly don't do them with the same passion. And if you do, on those days that car rolls out and it's perfect and you're wasted, you're not going to get that high the way you think that you're going to. I promise you. The drugs knock that off. It's what drugs do. They knock the highs down to mediums, and they knock the lows down to, to mediums. And you live in that limbo. You live in that area of false that lies between happiness and sorrow. And that's not what life is supposed to be about. But that's the battle. The battle is not, I'm not here bad-mouthing weed. I'm not here bad-mouthing alcohol. I'll be honest with you. I don't like the effect of either of those substances on people who can't control them. You understand? It's about the inability to control what's going on in your life. And that's really where, for you personally, that's where the evaluation needs to come into play. What you need to do is figure out whether or not you're an addict. There are people who will tell you that they can tell you if you're a drug addict. And you know what? It's probably really easy to do. Honestly, it's really easy to look at somebody and tell whether or not they're a drug addict. If you can see their lifestyle, if you watch how a person's living, there's nothing to it. It's so easy to say, no doubt about it, that person is addicted to drugs. It's also pointless. It is literally pointless, because the person who needs to say you're addicted to drugs is the person addicted to drugs. Being honest with yourself and saying, I'm sick. I need help. Without that step, and we've heard this in every interview I've ever done on this channel. We've heard it in every letter that anybody ever wrote to this channel, every testimonial, every comment. It all starts with the realization that my life is not what it should be, right? Alan Valentine last night, when he was talking about it, and you know, he wrestled with a couple of different substances, but when he was talking about the first of his drug addictions, and he was talking about meth, he just said, I realized I was going to be dead in a couple of years at the rate I was going. And if you were paying attention, the amount of money that this poor man blew on this substance could buy a home. It really got to the point where, he would get $30,000 and go through it in a matter of months. And for those people, because I had a couple of people that commented in another platform and were talking about, I don't know how anybody could do that much methamphetamine. They can pay upwards of $60 to $80 a point. That would be 1/10 of a gram, people. This is not the United States of America, where you could pick up an ounce of this garbage for $250. There are people paying $80 for 1/10 of a gram. That's like $800 a gram. If you're buying it and getting a deal, you might be paying $500 on a gram. How fast could you blow through $30,000? But that realization for Alan, when he said, I'm going to die if I continue to do this. And he said, this is not the man that I'm supposed to be. That's the litmus test, people. The title of this video is, addicted to drugs, are you or aren't you? Well, it's pretty simple. Is this the life you're supposed to be living? Is this the life that you want to live? Is this what you want your legacy to be? Is this what you want the memory of you to be, or however you look at the finish line? For some people, spirituality is very tied into that. And you think, for me, it was, when I meet my maker, is it going to be a comfortable conversation to say, I wasted the first half of my life? I am very comfortable with the concept that I took the first half of my life as training for the second half of my life. And for me, that has really been sort of a balm on the, on the guilt and the pain and the suffering from the things that I did to myself. When I hear somebody talk to me, or if somebody sends me an email and they start talking about things that are going on in their life, and I can say, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. To me, that makes the things that I did in the beginning of my life worth it. It gives me an insight that the next person might not have. And that insight has been of unbelievable benefit when talking to people who are still currently using. Having the ability to have been there and done that has given me a chance where I don't come across preachy, I think, and this is the reason that so many drug addicts who get sober end up in some form or another working in the rehab community, whether they do it as a labor of love like what we do here, or whether people decide to go into it as a full-time vocation to get paid. There's that draw, there's that feeling of, I got to give back. I can't let this happen to somebody else if there's a damn thing I can do about it. I know that I've had this conversation so many times on the, on the live streams, and I know Mark has too. But the first time that the two of us talked, I can't tell you how many times that exact subject matter just came up, we probably reworded it 400 different ways between the two of us, but it just kept coming back to the having been there and having lived it and having survived it. I got to stop at least one person from doing what I did. I got to stop one person from having the suffering that I went through. And it was that bond that really sort of launched, the boat in the format that it's in now. When Mark saw the channel, he saw instantly sort of a brother with a connection there that, this was something Mark was working on at the same time. And it was one of those things that, there was an instant meshing, but that's the end of the story, right? Truthfully, it's base camp, but it's the end of the part of the story that we're talking about right now. And the part of the story we're talking about right now is coming to the conclusion, right? Admitting to yourself that, depending on how you want to look at it, right? The 12 steppers say what? They say that your life has become unmanageable. Well, I think that's a pretty great term, whether you like the 12-step programs or not. It's a pretty great term, right? Is your life unmanageable? I don't know. If you're making an $800 paycheck and 600 of it is going in your arm, up your nose, or, into your stomach, well, yeah, I would say that that's not manageable. If your 2-week paycheck is $800 and you have $200 left to pay the rent, your car insurance, your car payment, is your life manageable? People, some of this stuff is so cut and dry. Where it gets to be gray areas are for people whose substance of choice isn't illicit. When something gets put on the black market, when something is illegal, the value of that product goes through the roof. So if you're addicted to cocaine, or you're addicted to heroin, or you're addicted to something illegal, all of a sudden you're talking about very serious amounts of money. And it becomes pretty obvious that your life is unmanageable. Like I said, when at the end of your paycheck, you got 10% left, to live on, and the rest went to drugs, that should be a glaring, boy, I've got a problem. But if your drug of choice is sold at every single convenience store in America, and your paycheck is $800, and by the time you have satisfied a daily need for your drug, you might have only spent a couple of $100. You might have even spent $100. Now you're starting to get into some gray areas. And this is where people need to make decisions. Or there are, other situations where, I know many times where people's best friend was a drug dealer. I had a friend who basically could do opiates all day long, every day, and never have to pay for it because he had an uncle that was the biggest dope dealer in all of Salt Lake City. Now, for that individual, he had a paycheck in his pocket. He always had money. The litmus test for if your life has become unmanageable probably should not be attached to money. It shouldn't. So how do you judge whether or not your life is unmanageable? How do you judge whether or not you are a drug addict versus somebody that needs to pump the brakes because they're spending too much time and effort on drugs? I think people that if you ask 60 people, you might get 60 answers. But having spent a lot of time, and I mean a lot of time, right? Over a decade of my life, I spent thinking about this and nothing else. This was the focus of my life when I was in that, walk-in closet with a toilet and a sink and a roommate. And for me, the things that became glaring for whether or not the answer to the question was, yeah, Tommy, you're a drug addict or not. The fact that I was sitting in a prison probably should have been a good, dead giveaway. But the things that really jumped out at me were, does this substance, does this chemical, has it become more important than the things in your life that used to be the most important things to you? In my life, the most important things in my life were always spirituality, so God, and then family. Skiing was huge. It was a huge part of my life. All of the things that meant the world to me, meant nothing anymore. Heroin had become more important to me than God. Heroin had become more important to me than my kids, than my parents, than my brothers and sisters, all of it. There was nothing in my life that heroin was more important than. If your substance of choice is more important to you than the things that you used to love, I assure you, you're a drug addict. You hear me? You're a drug addict. And that may be a difficult thing to hear. I promise you, wait till you say it the first time. Because if you think it's hard to hear, it's really hard to say. And I got news for you. If you feel that you're there and you have to say that today, you're not ever going to be able to not say it again. You can say, I'm not using, I'm sober, my life is good, I have gotten back on the path, but you're going to be a drug addict until the day you die. And the first time you start believing that that's not the case, you'll be an active drug addict again. I know it's not a pleasant concept. And I know people that really struggle with this. Look, I'm not a guy that says you need to introduce yourself as, hey, how you doing? I'm Tommy Scoville and I'm a heroin addict. I don't think you have to lead off every conversation with that. There are people who believe that. And you know what? If that keeps them sober, you go with it. You go with it. I don't want it to be the defining characteristic of my life, right? I don't. It certainly was the defining part of the first half of my life. The things that define the second half of my life, I hope people are going to say that I'm kind. I hope people are going to say that I'm honest. I hope people are going to say that I go out of my way to help others. Like those would be the big three for me. But the easiest litmus test for me, because it was just so glaring, was, has this substance become more important than family, God, hobbies, work? What in your life is currently more important to you than your substance? And if you say family, then be honest with yourself and ask yourself, like Alan Ballantyne did, you ever put your 4 and 5-year-old in the car at midnight to go pick up dope? Because if you did, then it's probably more important than your kid. Whether you want to admit it or not, you're allowing that substance to do things to you that you never would have done before, right? That's another great litmus test. When you first start using drugs, everybody starts to set certain rules for themselves, subconsciously or consciously. We all do it, right? So the first time you snort a little coke, you go, that was fun. Seriously, that was a good time. Then you do it 2 or 3 more times and you say, you know what? Here's the deal. I'm not spending more than $200 a week on this stuff. And I'm never going to do it at work. I'm only going to do it on weekends. Watch how long that lasts. We all did this. Everybody who's an addict did this. People who had a problem with alcohol would say, you know what, I'm just not going to drink during the week. I'm only going to drink on weekends. And then that went to, you know what, well, Friday, obviously, that's the weekend. And so 3 days a week, I'm going to go Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then it was, well, I'm going to drink during the week, but I'm never going to drink before 5 o'clock in the afternoon, right? That's it, man. Never going to drink before 5. And then it became, you know what, I can have 3 drinks in the morning, because if not, I kind of get a little shaky. So I'm just going to do 3 shots before I go to work, but I'm never going to drink at work, and I'm never going to drink more than 3 shots. And I was with somebody, a significant other, and I watched this girl go through this. And by the end of it, she was drinking a 5th of bourbon before going to work as a scientist, right? Worked at a very highly educated, a job that required a ton of education and a ton of dedication. And she would polish off a 5th before going to work. And you just watch this, and I could sit down with her and go, hey, you know something, hon? You're an alcoholic. Didn't do any good. Didn't matter how many times I said it. You've heard the stories on here. I've told them 100 times that I had to put her to bed every single night for 7 years, because wherever she passed out would be where I had to pick her up and carry her into the room. But until you make that decision for yourself, and until you can say out loud, right? Say it to the mirror, but say it to yourself, I'm a drug addict. I'm an alcoholic, whatever the case may be. And people, make no mistake either, if you're new to the boat, I don't make a distinction between alcohol and drugs. Alcohol is a drug that they sell at the corner store that you get in a liquid form. But make no mistake, alcohol is a drug, right? It's all the same thing. We say drugs and alcohol, but I think it's just because it's part of what's done. Good evening, everyone. Hi, Tommy T. Product. Good to see you. Glad that you're here. So, have drugs become more important to you than family, God, business, work, any of that? Pretty good indicator. Are the rules that you have set up for yourself changing on a weekly basis? Do you keep moving the goalpost? I'm never going to party on the weekdays. I'm just going to do it on the weekends. Okay, I'm going to do it on Wednesday because Wednesday sucks, and Monday is just a terrible day, so I might do it on Monday because it's hard to get through Monday. If you're doing this, right, and you're changing the dollar amount, I'm never going to spend more than $200 a week. I got to budget the rest of it, $200 a week, except this week. You know what I mean? Because it was a rough one. So this week I'm going to go 400, but then I'm going to get back to the 200. You know what? If I buy it in a bigger chunk, it's going to save me money in the long run. So I'm just going to buy $600 worth now, and I'm going to make that stretch out. We've all done that one too, haven't we? If I buy it in a bigger pile, it's going to be cheaper. And then I'm going to break it into little amounts, and I'm going to do just this amount every single day. And it's going to last me 2 weeks and save me a fortune. And on your third day, you're out. If you can't control your ability to pump the brakes, you're a drug addict. You understand what I'm saying? This is cut and dry, people. If you have said to yourself, I'm stopping on Monday, I swear to you, I've done this too much. Monday rolls around and I'm done. All right, screw it. It's been a bad week. Next Monday, though, I'm on it. People, I'm air quoting it again. Normal folks, non-addicts, don't do that. Non-addicts go out, they have a couple of drinks, maybe they go overboard, right? Maybe they drink to the point where they're vomiting. But the next day they're like, can you believe that? Boy, I acted like an idiot last night. And it might be 6 months before they do that again, right? They may never do it again. But if you can't stop doing what you're doing, you're a drug addict. There's no sugarcoating it, people. And the crazy thing is, with everything I've just described, I would say to myself, I'm not a drug addict. I'm using too much. I had already been to prison once for stealing. And I'd say, it's not that I'm a drug addict. I just really love getting high. There is something about admitting, especially in the beginning, before you understand the concept, there is something about admitting that you're powerless. That is a very difficult thing for people to do. For me, it was ridiculously difficult. Of course I can quit. I just haven't ever wanted to. Right? I mean, that's really where I was. I would justify that garbage to myself on a regular basis. You know, when people brought it up and started talking about it, I would say, nah, you know what? I can quit whenever I want. I just don't want to. I've never wanted to. If you've never wanted to quit, you're probably a drug addict. Normal people, air quotes, normal people always think about things like this. They evaluate their life and go, you know what? I drank 9 days in a row. What the hell's wrong with me? I'm not drinking again for at least a couple of weeks. And you know what happens? They don't drink for a couple of weeks. You know why? Because they're not addicted. Addicted people can stop whenever they want. I'm sorry. Non-addicted people can stop whenever they want. Air quote, normal people. When they say, I'm going to quit doing this, they quit doing it. The inability to stop is a dead giveaway that you're a drug addict. Now, the ability to stop for a period of time is a really good sign. But make no mistake, it does not mean that you have cured your addiction. What it means is that you're fighting the good fight. If you knew how many times I've talked to people who have said to me, you know what? I quit for 21 days. I obviously don't have a problem. Well, if you could quit for 21 days, right? You didn't quit. Quitting means you're never going to do anything again. It's like when people say, I quit smoking 10 times. No, you didn't. You stopped smoking 9 times, right? If you continue to go back and use, those were vacations. That wasn't quitting. Quitting is never going back. I am going to bring someone up today because I am ludicrously proud of him. If you're new to the channel, we're a family. We really are, and you're going to see that. You're going to catch it in the comment section. You're going to see that this is not just a channel where we do live feeds and everybody shows up and we know everybody, right? Everybody knows. Do you remember where I left off? Okay. Let me know when I'm unfrozen. All right. So for those of you who don't know, I just froze up for a second. For those of you who are off getting a donut, I froze up. But my partner on the other side of the glass was able to fix it. You see, if this were me, I would have had to shut the feed down, and then we would have done a take two or whatever. But when I got Mark on the other side of the glass, those are bumps in the road, as opposed to, yeah, you see seven sunnies there for the TT. It wasn't me this time, but Mark was able to fix it. So we got a guy on the boat. I don't know exactly where I let off, so I'll say this. This gentleman has been fighting the good fight, and he got so close to 30 days on multiple occasions, and then he would have a misstep. But amazingly, and this is a great indicator of not only where he's at in his sobriety, but who he is, he would, within a day, and each time it was actually quicker. First time it was within about a day and a half, he came back and said, you know what, everybody, I stumbled, I drank, but I'm going to get back up and I'm going to dust myself off and I'm going to try again. And then the next time, it was probably 7 or 8 hours after he drank. And then the last time, which would have been on New Year's Eve, he called me in the process of relapsing. He called me in the process of using, riddled with guilt, feeling awful about himself. And the conversation we had at the time, I said, what you needed was a really cool sobriety date. What you needed was a date that you're just not going to forget. And, I told him about some of the people who are on the boat who happen to have the exact same sobriety dates. A lot of people that choose that day as that's it, I'm never going. But he has fought the good fight, and that 30-day mark is no longer an enemy that beats him. So to Brandon, we are all, and I do mean all, so proud of you, brother. For real. This is for those of you who are new to the boat, this is our Lifeboat official participation trophy. Very oftentimes this is given out for things like a really cool comment or anything like that. We pull it up and wave it for the people on the crew. But every once in a while, it is such a big deal that as opposed to just sort of mentioning it, it is the way we have of honoring somebody that has really done something that gets us all fired up. And I'll tell you, people, you can look back and people say, well, so-and-so blew a sobriety date, or I blew my sobriety date. And I used, no matter how you look at it, in the last 3 months or so, the man drank 3 times, which is so much better than what he was doing. But now he's hit the 1 month mark, which means that he no longer is, I got 30 days sober. What he says is, tomorrow I start out my 2nd month. Sounds like it's pretty similar stuff, isn't it? It's not. Words mean things. And I promise you, in our brain, it means something completely different. It was like when the Lifeboat had 1,995, people on board the boat. When we got that extra 5, and we could go from saying there are 1,900 crew members to we have thousands of people on the boat who are fighting the good fight. It really does change your mindset. But you're about to start your 2nd month. Brandon, I can't tell you how proud I am of you, for real. And there is something so, I don't know, it's almost more magical because we watched you get back up. You know what I mean? For those on the boat who are fighting the good fight now, we'd like everybody to win on the first try. We'd like everybody to never relapse. It's not very realistic. It's not. Doesn't happen very often. It does, but not very often. But the fact that you continue to fight, and the fact that you continue to get up and dust yourself off, and the fact that you never lied to anybody on this boat. You could have come here and told us whatever you wanted, right? How was it? We didn't see you last night. Yeah, busy. Had some stuff I had to take care of. No. I came back here and said I wasn't here because I was drinking. And, we've said so many times, what's the fruit of addiction? Lies. Okay? That is the fruit of addiction. And the fact that you were so honest with us, it was already, Mark and I talked about this multiple times. It already screams, this is a guy that really wants to get sober, and people, it gets back to the same thing that we were just talking about. To say, I have a problem, right, is the start of fixing that problem. And when you commit to the new life, when you commit to being a new creature, then if you stumble, you tell the people that you stumbled. If you feel like you're coming up short, you tell the people around you who are in your support family that you're feeling, a little fragile. There was last night in the interview, it was great. We were talking to Alan, and Alan said, I drove by the liquor store the other day, and for the first time in years, I thought, boy, how good a beer would taste right now? People, do you know what he did? He called me. I'm not sure if he spelled that out exactly. I know that he said that he reached out or, he wanted to talk. No, he called me. He said, Tommy, I'm in a bad place, man. He said, I'm in relapse. And I said, you drank? He said, no. But like you said, it's a process. I'm definitely in relapse. And all the way from Australia, I think we spent about an hour and a half on the phone because he knew the direction he was going in. And I'm no guru. I'm just a guy that got sober, right? Mark's no guru. He's just a guy who got sober. But you don't need a guru. You don't. To stay sober, what you need is somebody else who's fighting the good fight, who wants to pull for the same team. That's all you need. When people say, I went and got a sponsor, think sponsors walk on water? I got news for you. Sponsors are drug addicts that don't use. That's it. That's what they are. And they're brutally honest.
Let me say something real quick, Tommy.
Please.
Good. That point right there you just made is huge because, and I know that a lot of us know what that show, Intervention, on TLC, I think it was, where they go and they help and they get people into facilities and they do all the, what do they call that? Well, an intervention. Duh. Anyway, the guy, yeah, sorry.
What's that?
The guy that actually had the most senior on everybody there that was helping everybody as a counselor and as an interventionist, he relapsed like 6 years into the show.
Really?
And then he came back. Okay. So I guess my point is that it doesn't matter who you are. If you don't continue to follow some sort of regiment, if you don't keep it in your mind that, hey, I'm over here looking at the beer case, maybe I should call my friend. Maybe I should call my brother, something. You got to recognize that. So, anybody can fall to that. And let me tell you something, guys. There shouldn't be any guilt with that. I have to say that. Because that guilt will lead you to a darker place. Now, there should be some accountability, okay? You can't just, ignore it. But don't feel guilty about it. What's in the past is in the past. Yes, we learn from it. Pick it back up. Keep moving. And that's what we do here. We don't judge people here. And then that's the other thing that you're not going to get out in the world. Everybody out there has judged you the first second they lay eyes on you. Okay? First time they talk to you, you've already been judged. It doesn't, and that's something that, it's a natural thing for us, right? We kind of do that, don't we, Tommy? I mean, it's just a natural boom right in your face. And we've consciously tried and we're succeeding at not doing that here. It is an effort because it is a natural thing for your brain to say, my God. And in my outpatient program, I have a group once a month, right? And we had somebody in there that you just knew wasn't telling the truth. And, and unfortunately, she ended up leaving the group, and I think she ended up probably getting booted out of there or something for some reason. I mean, they don't go into detail or anything. But, and then we started talking about that. That was actually a conversation to help us, really. Because you got to understand that, because you can get in that same spot yourself. And that's why we discussed it. And, I said, and forgive my language here, but you can't bullshit a room of bullshitters. Okay? So we're going to know pretty much what's going on. Now, we don't assume, but we're going to know the questions to ask you if you're doing these kinds of things. And that's the accountability. There's no guilt, no judgment. We just see it. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say. So don't be, it's nothing. There is no judgment there, anything like that. And you're going to get that from your brothers and sisters there in the chat too. They know too. Anybody that's ever went through this for any length of time can spot it a mile away. I mean, and we've talked about that a lot, but I just thought that kind of applied there. So, yeah.
No question. Yeah, no question. And I think that's fascinating. I actually watched that show a lot. It was one of the shows that people watched routinely in prison. There's it's such a Groundhog Day thing in prison. People get into cycles and they do the exact same thing. And it was odd because no matter what prison I went to, there were certain shows that, I mean, you could set your watch by the fact that they were all going to be watching the same thing, even if you were on other ends of the country. But one of the shows that nobody ever missed was Intervention. And I know the guy, you talk about the guy with the white hair. Yeah, that's fascinating. I had no idea, but I'm not surprised. When I lived in Texas, and it was in the very early days of realizing that my life was out of control, I went to a counselor down there. I was court ordered. I didn't do it because I wanted to, but I went to a counselor down there. And I'll tell you the guy's name because he's no longer with us, but his name was Rocky. And Rocky was an ex-convict, and he had been sober like 16 or 17 years. And a great guy, really tried hard to help me. But I went back to Texas about 10 years after I moved, and I'm driving by and I saw the same place on the side of the road. And I thought, you know what, I'll head in there and say hi to the guy. And when I went in, I was talking to the counselor that ran the place. And I said, hey, is Rocky here? And he said, Rocky passed. And I said, oh man, because he wasn't an old guy. And I said, what got him? He said, technically he had a hole in his heart, a teeny little, same thing that got John Ritter, just like a defect, a little hole in his heart. And I said, wow, that's odd. He goes, but to be honest, he died of a broken heart. Because after all those years, which was closer to 25 by the time he relapsed, his drug of choice was alcohol. And one day, like can happen. He's a guy that's counseling people every day, but apparently wasn't working on his own walk. And he relapsed and went on about a 3-week run where he just, was blowing as much money as he possibly could and really going hard and drinking as hard as he could. But by the time, he said when he got sober, and he said he never really bounced back. There was some level of guilt or whatever. People, if the fruit of addiction is lies, then the fruit of recovery is guilt. And it's one of those things that I think our biggest mission here at the Lifeboat, honestly, aside from obviously trying to help people get sober, is trying to help people deal with the guilt from the lives that we led. Because, look at me and my life story. You think you screwed up. Get a good look at me. I ended up in federal prison. I blew the amount of money and the opportunities and all of the things that I had going in life that I let drugs, ruin, and the possessions that I pawned. And if I think about all of the things, and like Alan was talking about, breaking your family's heart, all of those things, what really has kept me on an even keel is the realization that wasn't me. I'm sorry. And you can say that's a cliche. You can say it's a cop-out. Talk to someone that knew both of us, that knew the old me and that knows the new me. And they'll tell you that it's like meeting two different people. It's like meeting two different people. And if you don't think that that's the case, people, everything that we were just talking about in the beginning of this, as you're trying to identify this stuff, the person who makes rules and then breaks them, the person who puts drugs above God, family, work, everything, is that you? Because it sure as hell ain't me. Plain and simple. And I do believe wholeheartedly that when a person gets sober, and I don't mean when a person stops using, right? That's chemical free. But when a person gets sober and truthfully says, that's it, I'm changing my life, you are a new creation. So don't beat yourself up for what the old creation did. I don't mean you don't get a free pass. You have to own it. Because if you don't, you're very subject to do it again. But you own it the way Alan did. Alan says, when I think about it now, it hurts me. But it's a motivation for me to never do it again. That's the benefit of owning it. But you don't have to wallow in it. And you don't have to make it something that you absolutely obsess about.
Yeah,
It's not going to get you anywhere.
I think that's awesome. I really do. That's a really good way to look at it. And I guess it forces me to think, because again, I grew up as a Christian. I know we say this a lot. We don't push religions or anything like that, but that's what I am. So, I'm going to be who I am, but unapologetically, really. I mean, and I would expect you guys to be the same. But I go back to like a lot of the parables, and it's about the one I'm talking about right now is the seeds that fall on different parts of the ground. Some fall in the rocks, some fall in the dirt, some fall in good soil, all this and that and the third. And you can go, and you guys can go read that for yourself. I'm not going to read the whole parable, but essentially, if you fall on into the rocks, what happens? You're going to grow, but you're also going to get ripped out of the ground really, really easy when it gets rough. So if you fall in the good soil and you start growing some really good roots, you got your chance of success is so much bigger. And we don't stick to the guilt, but I also think it's healthy to understand and remember that guilt and how it felt. Because that in itself, if you can tell yourself, I don't ever want to feel like that again. And that's going to be in your mind, and that can be a direct deterrent to those immediate things that, like what happened with Brandon when he was, at the beer case, looking. So if his mind is set, because, and here's the thing, he's progressing because his mind didn't tell him to open the door and grab whatever he was going to grab. He reached in his pocket and grabbed the phone. That is a huge growth for anybody. And I know that most people can't see that. Only we are going to actually recognize that. Anybody that's been through that. So, Brandon, if you're still here, man, I mean, that's a huge, huge step in your own mental process of staying in recovery.
Yeah, actually, that was Alan, though. Alan Valentine.
Oh, that was Alan. My bad. Yeah. But
the point is the same one way or the other. And people reaching out. We talk about this so many times, but it harkens back to the thing again that people talk about. Every once in a while, you see a commercial on TV that says they have the cure for alcoholism. Right? They've got the cure, which is awesome. I guess that you and I can retire.
And, we can go make a channel where we eat, Tide Pods or something. People, there's no magic bullet. There isn't. There are things that are helping. There's science is getting better. There's medical assisted treatment. There's all kinds of things that can help. But when it comes right down to it, the cure for addiction is living a sober life. It's really funny because I got into a great debate with my current counselor, not a debate, but a conversation. And I hope she's not watching this, because I'm just going to be really honest. When I first started going with this to this counseling session, I thought this girl was adult. And maybe I just didn't. Here's the thing. The mask screws me up. It really does. When you go in and you do a counseling session and this is what you see, and the person's talking to you, right? There's no facial expression. I couldn't tell. It was so difficult to get a read on this person with none of the facial expressions that I think I was probably a bit thick-headed about the whole thing. And I even said to a couple of people, I don't know how much help I'm going to get out of this person. Doesn't strike me as particularly sharp. And then one day, I said, we were talking about the channel, and I said, we're more of the belief that the opposite of addiction is not, sobriety. She said, no, it's connection. And I said, what? And I think I went about 30 minutes over on that session. And since then, it's been, sort of just talking about, issues with sobriety, not necessarily in my life, but just on the big picture. And I said, what do you think of these people that run these ads that say there's a cure for addiction? And she said, well, there is. I said, you believe that? She said, yeah. I said, what is it? She said, well, Number one, you have to be honest to yourself. Number two, you need to surround yourself with a group of people who have probably been there themselves, and you need to meet with them regularly. And she went on to describe how everybody who stays sober, and uses a system to do it. And I said, "You think that's the cure?" She goes, "I don't know that it's a cure, but if you want to play games with semantics, yeah. If you follow that program and you never drink again or you never use again, and at 84 you pass away, people will go, he tried that program and it cured him." Right? But until they close that pine box, people, you're not cured. You're just living the right life. That cure will happen when they can say, yeah, you know what? He stumbled onto a group of people that really cared about him, or she stumbled across a group of people that really cared and plugged into a program and went out of her way to help other people. And I'll be damned if she never used again. But the cure,
I think that's right on point, man. I mean, and I have to say this, guys, and I've said this before, but I am very, very lucky in the fact that I didn't have to go look for my support. My support came and got me. They found, my wife and my family. I mean, they grabbed me, and if you're lucky enough to have people in your life that care enough about you like that, don't deny that. Just go get it. Try, all those kinds of things we talk about. But outside of that, what we do here is exactly what we're talking about. And did you see my face when you said that? When she said connection, I was like, she said that? I was like, because you don't hear that, and that's why it's a shocker.
It freaked me out.
Yeah,
it absolutely freaked me out.
And
what was cool was, I think that at that point, and we said it almost like you and I did that day when we were texting. Like, we said it not literally at the same time, but so close to the same time that there's no way either of us were saying it off to somebody else.
It's sort of open to dialogue because I don't think she hears that a whole lot either. It's starting to catch a little bit of traction. You're hearing more people talk about, what it means to be connected. But once you realize that there are people out there that actually take the sobriety thing as not a science, but this subject matter that is so important that it's worth talking about and it's worth studying and it's worth exploring. And when you find somebody that's simpatico like that, like you and I, or that, it always creates a bond that's just a little different. You know what I mean? Because it's one thing. I've met people in 12-step groups that they go there every day because they'll be damned if they're gonna drink or they're gonna do drugs. But if you say to them, are you happy in the new life? Very often you get people that they're not particularly happy. And I'll make you promise, people, if living a sober life meant I was going to be miserable, I would just go do what I did. For real. Because if I'm going to be miserable, what's the point? I can tell you truthfully, and this is from the bottom of my heart, I've never been this happy in my life. In every aspect of what I've got going on in my life, I've never been more happy. I've got a mission that I feel very, very strongly about. I've got people that I work with that I trust and that have my back. And, I was going to bed last night and I was talking to my best friend in the world, or one of them. And as I was getting ready to hang up the phone, I went, you know what? I said, I'm looking over at the nightstand, and I had my pocket watch and the watch I had just taken off, and I had one other watch, and my wallet was up there. Like, these aren't $5 million watches, people, but they'd have been in a pawn shop 7 years ago, right? There's no chance in hell I own any of this. No matter how much money I had, it was always going to be going to dope. And if I did own one of those, I might own it for a week because it was going to go to the pawn shop. And just looking around and realizing that, you know what, I don't have a care in the world, even on the days that are bad, people. And we've had some bad ones, right? It's been a tough run here on the boat. But even on the bad days, I have a kind of hope that I didn't have before sobriety. And that hope is, I'm telling you, people, if you could sell it by the gram, you'd be the richest person in the world, because there is something beautiful about hope. In fact, what's it say there? Hope anchors the soul. And it certainly anchors mine, for real. The the kind of day-to-day stressors that I have to work with. In the old days, what if I got how much stealing am I going to have to do to get high today? And is the fence going to be there to buy the stuff? Am I going to get caught driving into the hood to pick it up? Like this was a daily occurrence. Today, the stressors are now, Mark will say, what's the subject for tonight? Are we ready to roll? Like, these are the kind of things that I got to think about. And I'll be honest, people, this is a labor of love. I mean that. I absolutely mean that. Even on the days that it's frustrating, I still love what I'm doing here. And I still feel like what I'm doing here is important. And and I know Mark feels the exact same way. This is just what we do. This isn't about a YouTube channel. It's a great forum for what it is that we do. But this is about reaching out and trying to help people and having the group of people that we do here. And I'm not going to mention you by name because there is a chance I will leave out about 2,000 of you, which I don't intend to do. But before I do wrap this up tonight, because we're getting onto that time, this right here, Brandon, if you had any idea how proud we all are of you, and I can speak for every person on this boat and do that with confidence. Truthfully, I'm not speaking for me. And I know I'm speaking for me and Mark because we were talking about it before we went live. But I know that there's nobody on this boat that doesn't agree with me. You have fought the fight beautifully to get to this day. Keep it up. Don't use this as a reason to go celebrate. Celebrate the right way. And you can, and your life will be nothing but sunshine and roses. And on the days that it's not, you'll be able to deal with it. And that's really what it's all about, people, being able to deal with the highs, the lows, and everything in between. I leave anything out, partner?
So, I mean, and I want to say this just real quick, because we had to restart the stream. I guess we'll give it a couple more minutes or whatever. Not really restart, had to reconnect. Anyway, me and Tommy, we do this because it's partly our therapy, right? I mean, and so in a way, and I've thought about this a lot, we are doing this for ourselves. And I know that sounds like, I don't know really how it sounds. I mean, it doesn't sound right to actually say it like that. It sounds almost selfish, right? But at some level, I think we have to be at least a little bit, because if we're not, we will lose focus. I've done it. Everybody that's ever made it past and then didn't, we lose it. So, yeah, I don't want people to, kind of glaze over that fact, because even when you're helping somebody else, yep, when you're helping somebody else, you're still helping yourself. And that's kind of what I was saying. So,
and I think we did a video, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Looking out for number one. I mean, you can't, there's so many great cliches for this. There's the
oxygen mask thing. There's the, you can't pour water out of an empty vessel, right? Like all of those different things. But self-care, making sure that you're taking care of number one, is the only way you're ever going to help anybody else. And that's a stone cold fact. And I know I type it virtually every day, but I want to say out loud that we had a tough week, right? This has been a tough week here on the lifeboat, and I know that we all miss Cindy, and it was just a difficult thing. But you know what? I want to thank everybody for rising up and helping. And make no mistake, I love this boat. I really do. I love this boat. I'm so glad you all are here. Between now and tomorrow morning, or tomorrow night rather, at 6:00, when we all get back together to do this again, you have but one assignment, and that is to reach out and try to save somebody. And I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass,
Mark Wages.
Good night, everybody. Oh.